So again, that was such a beautiful reading. I'm still in the moment of the snowflakes and the flying and the spoon. And thank you again. I would like you all to know this is the first time I think it's been done outside of Cuba, but most of it was in Spanish. And so it's the first English-speaking reading, and it hasn't been done in Germany. So this is quite significant, and then also American premiere. So thank you. But Roland, tell us a bit about the play.
Well, I mean, of course, there are many things in the play that an American audience or a European audience will not understand in the same way that a Cuban audience gets it. But I'm very happy that still it seems to work very well in another context. One thing you have to know about Cuban family life is that it's very common that generations live in the same house. The grandma, the mother, and the daughter, and the boyfriend. And that's so people, maybe a group of 9 people share 3 rooms. That's very, very common. So, and when I wrote the play, I was living in similar conditions to that.
You were the boyfriend.
I was the boyfriend. Yeah. I am the boyfriend. And the brother of my, what's that? That's the father of my mother-in-law. The brother's living in Miami since 42 years, and in fact, they have sent a package that was on the way for many years. Maybe not for the fault of postal services, maybe because they moved but nobody knew, whatever. So, but the story of this package was a running joke in the family. And one day the thing arrives, and it is, as it turns out, just a test run to see if it would arrive. So in that package there was only this bullshit, this promotional material of these things. So if you had seen the faces of the Cubans waiting for that package for 2 or 3 years, that was so funny. Because that's a beautiful thing in Cuba, that people make jokes all the time. They can laugh about their misery in a very, very delightful way. So that's why they probably are sort of indestructible in all this difficult conditions that they live in. The heat, the lack of electricity, no water, all that is in the play in a way. So from that moment on, when this things came out of this box, I thought, this is a play. I don't know what play it will be, but I had, and so yeah, these are the roots of the play. But as I said in the beginning, I'm very happy to see that this turns out to have another dimension that maybe I wasn't even conscious of.
What dimension did you see today or hear?
Well, I mean, it's a more general story, no? Of things that people need, things that people dream of, and things that people can't buy with money. And that's something sort of international. That's not a socialist or post-socialist syndrome.
Yeah, I think it is about the inner world or the dream world or the desires, but also about the soul almost, of the people. It's I think very touching that it is about the imagination, what you focus on.
Yeah, it's these dreams of being able to fly, the spoon with all the taste. That's a topic. That's an issue. That's not new. That's a sort of an ancient. That sounds a little bit like an ancient story. The jar that's always full. That sounds like a little bit like a fairy tale. Maybe a German fairy tale, maybe a Latin American fairy tale. But that's as sometimes in my work, this two styles cross over. This sort of magic realism and I don't know. But maybe the most important point is that it's hard to get back once you have been outside. that the world is colder and colder, that once you have seen other things, you won't be the same anymore. That is, that's something maybe more profound.
Perhaps also with your own journey. You know, you grew up in Germany, you studied in Germany, you have your success in Germany as a writer, and now you're also living in Cuba, and very different.
Very different.
Did it change you as a person or your artistic work?
Well, it motivates me a lot. I didn't plan that. I didn't plan to sort of adapt to Cuban cultural life. There had been productions of mine in Cuba before, of Peggy Pickett, Arabian Night, Golden Dragon as well. And I was very skeptical about writing a play for a Cuban audience, because it's very easy to put oneself on top of the others and sort of make jokes about the Cubans and everything. That wouldn't turn out well, because they don't like it, and I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't have liked it. So I was very cautious with that. But on the other hand, it might help me to have a little distance from the Cuban everyday life, so it is easier for me than for other writers to keep a sense of humor, because there is a tendency in Cuban writing that's more bitter, more aggressive, which is, of course, totally their right to do that. But from the distance, I can wink a little bit about this and say, well, let's take it a little bit más suave in Espanol, a little bit softer. And so, in a way, that influenced my writing. The other thing that's very interesting experience for me is that you can't make in Cuba not a single dime with writing, because public is, the audience enter almost for free. They pay 10 cents for a ticket, and that money won't get in your pocket. No way. That goes to somebody else. So it's actors aren't paid, or what they get is, if what we did, we found the support of the German embassy, who gave us tremendous money, $1,500, and that was it. That's the budget. With this, you pay for 2 months the whole crew, and so everybody makes how many? 300 in 2 months, 150 in the months. Oh, how much is that in a week? Well, anyway, so that is not about competition. That is not about making money. That's something different.
It's a completely different economy. I think it's quite a fascinating concept. So we have many writers from all around the world here, and often if someone is from Poland, say, I'm not Polish, I'm European, I'm universal, I'm global. Here is a German playwright who says, I'm going to write something for Cuba, almost like a homeopathic doctor who says, let me see what's right, you know, for this body to provoke or create a reaction, a site-specific play in a sense, or the completely other sense what it's normally used. I thought it was so beautifully poetic, such a great melody in it. It was very clear and light, and also highly inventive in its formal structure. You know, the actors commenting on each other, and gives a very intelligent readings. I felt what we have seen. But maybe we could ask you as the director, how is it written as a long monologue? Or how is it on the pages? How did you transfer it or translate it onto the reading? You might have to push.
It's not written as a monologue. It looks surprisingly like a play that isn't a sort of direct address piece, but the rhythm is really strong, and you're right to point that out. I think that was one of the first things we talked about, was how to make sure we found the rhythm of the piece, because it feels like if you miss the musicality, then the whole piece could get off. So sort of translating that, I think, for all of us felt really important to find the rhythms.
Yeah, I felt it was almost like a very long poem, like a very folk, like a so well rounded and crafted and sanded, and in quite a beautiful form. But maybe also the question to the actors: how was that message from a German writing something from Cuba, now read by New York actors? How did it feel? And you might take the mic because we're recording it.
Oh.
Not that we can hear you so well, as you know, but this is to push it up, yeah.
Well, when we were talking about it yesterday, I said it seemed like this Latin American sort of surreal thing married to Eastern European kind of sensibility in a sense. So you could feel both those things in a way, or you could feel your influence from Germany or whatever. It had similar elements.
I felt like I didn't.
Can you push up? I'm not sure.
Oh, it's not.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
I didn't notice anything particularly German or not German. Like I didn't. I mean, I don't even know. I just felt that like I noticed your name as a writer, and then I read the piece, and I felt mostly the magical realism of Latin America that I was familiar with from Latin American writers, novelists too, you know, and that definitely stuck out for me. Also, I really responded to it's for people sitting on a couch. It says that in the stage directions, and they're telling a story about something that already happened to them, to the audience. But it felt very dramatic, even though we weren't necessarily getting up and walking around. It wasn't happening from in front of the audience, you know, that the package comes in and we experience. We're telling them about this thing that happened to us. So I was very intrigued by that. Like, what is dramatic about someone just telling you a story about something that happened to them? And I love that about the piece.
Yeah, and I also think this has such an intelligent idea that you're not just an actor pretending to be someone that you comment, you interrupt someone, other finishes your sentence, and this beautiful formal structure that appeals to the audience to make their own sense, and it's not all pre-done. I think we live in an age of phonetic realism, or some people do say, and I agree, we live in the age of a capitalist realism. There's like a socialist realism, you know, when they were telling you how great the state and the party and everything is, but that's not really true. And now we live in a time where there's a capitalist realism. All the TV ads are real and they tell you a story, but it's actually not the true story. You can buy a sneaker, but you will never be Michael Jordan. You can make as good as a coffee as you want, but your family will not be happy. You can drink as much alcohol, but you will not have real friends. The opposite is true. But it creates a desire, something that's missing, what's wrong with you, and it's trying to sell you something, but it's done in real, kind of hyper-realistic way, like all the reality TV shows, the reality documentaries, the data, the obsession with data, what pushes aside what perhaps also like the reading last night from Valia Nova Rina, this kind of imaginary, poetic world, who perhaps... when, as the play said, we don't know, should we tell it at the beginning or the end, where are we, what's going on, is much closer to what a reality perhaps really is. We don't reconstruct it. It doesn't really exist. And anybody who tells you this is this and that, that's black and white, is actually lying. And the stories then told in a way as if they will make sense with the morals and the political opinions that are preached by you. Perhaps they're also really not reflecting and lying. And I think this wonderful play is a great example of an openness that also gives such a freedom to the audience to imagine and to dream. And I was kind of spellbound to hear the clarity, and I think also must have worked so hard on polishing it, and it was like really like a great Mozart piece. It was a clarinet, that's what I like. But we have also a great audience, and speaking about the audience, maybe we couldn't put up the lights, and we could take a couple of questions, take advantage that Roland is here with us. And of course, anybody has another suggestion or idea, let us know. But so there's 1, 2, and another. So let's start here. 3, okay. We'll start at the top, yeah.
I thought the work was beautiful. and funny, touching. I wanted to just ask, to follow up what you were just speaking of, was the choice to make it a story told as opposed to simply a story dramatized intuitive? Was that something that you weighed? Did you try it both ways? I'm curious how you arrived at that process.
It is, well, narrative theater has appeared in my work before. I have sort of various pieces who work with the technique, but in a different way than in this one. This situation where the family is sort of confronting the audience in the very situation of not being able to tell, that's something new. And that is something that is linked very much to Cuban reality as well, because Cuban families sit together and tell stories. That's something that is not because there's so many people living together. They sit and so much boredom. They don't have anything to do, and then there's the power cut, and there's less to do, and then they start making jokes and telling stories, and they tell them again and again and again. It's a ritual that's very beautiful. And from the outside, I can say, okay, I heard the story before 2 weeks ago, but now it changed a little bit. So, and maybe they don't notice, or they just enjoying themselves, but I do. And, or maybe they do, and they do it on purpose. I don't know, but this sort of storytelling is part of Cuban reality. So that was what was so easy for me. Also the sofa. There is no Cuban house without a sofa. That's, I don't know. Maybe you don't have a pot to boil water, but a sofa will be. So that's where the structure came from.
Yeah, what also one has to keep in mind, the great inventions in Eastern European writing and surreal writing or an absurdist writing, surreal and sur la réalité, also over the reality, is that life often didn't make any sense. It was absurd. There was, no electricity, but the party would tell you how great life is. They would say you were much better off than American workers, but they didn't have a car. But so why would you write anything that would make sense? That would be actually absurd or surreal. So it also reflects in a way than reality. Yeah. So the other question was right under here.
I think, did you say you wrote this in Spanish or in German to start with?
I did it. I wrote it in German. I thought it's Spanish,
Okay.
but at that time my Spanish wasn't good enough to write anything. But I had the translation in mind.
I'm curious about, Devon talked about the rhythm of it, and it seems like German and English are languages that maybe have a more similar rhythm than Spanish, and how much that would have affected this work.
Yeah, that's right. It's maybe that's why I'm so touched with this, because I feel a little bit more at home. I can. It's right. The Spanish rhythm is different, and I have to say that, no offense, less elegant than, from my ears, the English or the German one.
What was the other? Oh, over there. Yes.
So I really loved how lyrical the piece was. It definitely sounded a lot like a poem, and the inclusions of poems in the play was great as well. I'm wondering if the inclusion of magical realism, was that something you had in mind right from the start of writing the play after, you thought of it after this package arrived? Or is that just, I guess, a centerpiece of Spanish and maybe German culture as well, that for you just made sense that it was going to go in that direction? It's just, I'm familiar with that, being Nigerian. Very easy to throw that into every story that's being told, to turn the moral into something otherworldly. I'm just curious about with this piece.
It is basically the sort of the magical details have a very realistic background. If you can't fly, that is That means if you can't leave the country, you will dream about it. And that's where it comes from. Because, well, when I wrote the play, at that point, Cuban people could travel outside. It was possible, or it is possible, since 3 years now. They do have passports, but nobody will let them in. They can go out, but because they need visa. And they won't get a visa without the invitation and all the procedure that you might know as well. So that's where the idea comes from. The same thing with the spoon, because Cuban stores or markets are rather empty. And the jokes about the food and the taste are pretty real. There might be people who never have eaten capers, not even heard the word. So it is more realistic than one would think. There are, of course, some jokes about the jar that never, and all these things, but let's say the basic elements are due to realism. The romantic side, the poetic side, the love poems, that also has a sort of in a way, a background, because in Cuba, as I have seen it in other Eastern European countries, communist countries, love is a good that's a little bit strange, that people don't tend to be very romantic. They tend to have relationships, but sort of romanticism is something very European, or maybe American, that I don't know. But it's like Shakespeare. If you have the people who write poems are the loony ones who can afford to do that. And so you won't see that very much in Cuba. And so all this has a context.
Yeah, this is wonderful. I think there's one theory, I think Jean-Claude Carrière, the great screenwriter, wrote about. He was, I think, a prisoner of war, and the Germans. But he said they would make up meals. They didn't have anything to eat. They would pretend, they would talk about how they prepare, they would go shopping and come back, and as a game to pass time. But also, neurologists say we don't, after it's done, our memory is not really clear. Did we eat or didn't we eat? That's why we like to watch cooking shows. You don't really know whether you ate it or not. It's playing a trick in your mind. So this is quite a wonderful way of dealing with dreams and reality, and also having an effect. Is there another comment, idea, a question?
I'll just add to that too. That without knowing that detail, we talked about that as well. That there was an inevitability about this story that felt like even if you stripped away the magical elements, that these characters were going to have this journey in some way, shape, or form that felt very, felt very true, that their longing and their loneliness would inevitably end up where it ends up, even if they hadn't been able to fly,
Yeah, and also to say Roland's work really, truly also has a strong tradition, even his German plays. This fantastic play, The Golden Dragon, which perhaps in my view is the most successful play, dealing with the ideas of immigration in a very playful way, in a way of fantasy, of imagination, also very sad and funny, where I think 14 actors play 40 characters, and we are inside people and they turn into insects. And it sounds all also like very surreal and doesn't make any sense, but it made most sense, I think, to me or more sense than many, many others in the great New York production by the play company. I think also showed that there is a very long tradition, but there is also, of course, a German tradition of the Grimm fairy tales, of the romantic movements and Brecht's idea, Brecht's plays in a way were fairy tales, in a way, with this very strong moral, but also where he said, you take a step back, you just present what you do, you're not really that person, you just present it. And his hope was that through some kind of a journey, one would understand better, as if you pretend it's really reality. Is that something I misrepresented, or?
No, you're right. I was just thinking about Brecht, and that Brecht has written so many plays sort of being on the run. from the Nazis. And so maybe this way of producing or writing without having the means of a theater behind, a huge theater behind, maybe that influences them as well. So there's one thing very basic about all this, and that is simplicity. You don't do it. You don't need anything. You need the sofa, and that's it. You might buy a wig if you can find one. I spawned that on that. That's a common place to say, but it's if you don't have anything, of course you have to invent things, and that sometimes helps. And so you do by telling. You take sort of abbreviations to take the shortcut, and the shortcut leads to the real crazy thing, and that's not so much in a sort of political or educational way, as I would sometimes see it in Brecht. It's more just following the easiest way.
Did you direct the Cuban production? Yeah, tell us a bit. How did you solve it? How did the stage look like? And what did you do?
We had the sofa.
Like a normal size or a gigantic?
No, a small one.
Small
The very old sofa that has about the sofa one could write another play. And I had my father-in-law repairing it or giving it a sort of a support on the back so one could walk on the how do you say that, the lean of the sofa. Yeah. That was where the flying took place.
The back.
And that's it.
So it was one piece of furniture and similar like here the actors.
We had a spoon, we had a glass, we had the wig, and we had the calendar from the Western Union.
And the pencil.
The pencil as well. So that was all. Very simple and rather small theater. I don't know, maybe 150 seats to 100 seats, and sort of upfront situation, storytelling, and no light changes. One light change with the blackout, and we had a really good time.
That's fantastic. So before we close the evening, maybe let us know what are you working on now? What did it spark? What is your new spark of imagination? What stories did you listen to as a story hunter or finder or a searcher? What's cooking?
It is. There has been cooking a novel that I've just finished, and that's going to be published next spring. And I just finished another work for Cuba. That is a play that's called "This Night Everything Will Be Different," and that is a play that is situated in a discotheque. It's my first disco play. And it's as well, the structure more or less narrative, but it's much more musically influenced. There won't be any band playing, but the actors will do a lot of sound. And they will talk about this discotheque that is sort of a hell of a discotheque. It's called Paradise. And in this paradise, 3 cousins again sneak in from the back door, the emergency exit, and they dance. And when these chicas dance, hell gets loose, because they have this technique of shaking their ass that is called in Spanish la batidora, the kitchen mixer. and the mixer it does so much ventilation, so much, it's like a tornado in this discotheque, and so all of a sudden this tornado changes everything, and everything is going to be different, and all the bullshit and all the prostitution changes, and there come up very beautiful stories, which of course turn out bad.
So wonderful. So that also means we all can fly now easier to Cuba. You let us know when the opening is.
October. Our production of the Ant is going to perform at the International Theatre Festival in Havana, and at the same time, they invited the discotheque without knowing what it would be like, and we're going to show that as well.
In October.
In October.
So get your Western Union calendar out, take the magic pen, take a drink from the jar, and let's see we come and go there, right? So again, thank you so much to the actors. Fantastic. And
Thank you.
Thank you. Instead of having a reception here, we're going to go around the corner on 36th Street on the south side between 5th and Madison. It's called the Archive Bar, the Archive. And whoever wants to come, if you have the time, we hang out there. So thank you so much again.